Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, good to have you here, Walter.
Didn't take long to get here, about an hour. Was it about an hour? Yes, about an hour.
Yeah,
so,
in the countryside. It's nice to be out of London.
Yeah, it is. It's thanks for the invitation.
So it's really great to have you here. And what I want to do is, I've been following your work on Facebook and
following yours as well.
Been doing some really great stuff.
Thank you.
And something that really interests me is the philosophy that you talk about.
Yeah.
That's and the way that it comes into mindset and the way we live our lives and all that kind of stuff. So I want to talk about that.
Okay.
But let's start with your background, because you've been an osteopath for a long time, right?
Oh, over 30 years now. So
30 years.
80 something 4, 3, something like that.
Okay.
Qualified in. So
Okay.
it's been a great journey.
Yeah.
I've really had a good time. I did the American football for years.
Yeah.
Did the rugby. Even for a little spell between 2000 and 2009, I was a radio presenter.
Were you?
Did you not know that?
No.
Okay. I was a radio presenter, and that was great training.
Yeah.
Trained up some very good people. Ended up having my own jazz show. Nothing to do with osteopathy.
Okay.
But it was a whole thing about media.
Nice. Yeah.
How to voice, how to the legal things and everything else.
Yeah.
So that was a really good experience. And of course, I did lots of writing and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to encourage other people to get out there as you're doing.
Yeah.
And have some fun.
Yeah.
We all know something.
Yeah.
If there's something, we're going to get to the public, it's going to be really, really simple stuff, and that's what attracts people all the time.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, yeah. You said on one of your posts recently that you went to stationers' school.
Oh yeah.
Now that's in central London somewhere, right?
The school was in North London.
North London,
in Hornsey. The original hall, Stationers' Hall, was next to St Paul's Cathedral.
Right. Okay.
It's tucked away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to it's the Worshipful Company of Stationers, which went back to the old printing press in Caxton and all that.
Yeah.
And again, I tell the story about why it's called stationery.
Yeah.
Is because the Stationers Guild, which goes back to the 15th century, said if you join the guild while you're selling your parchment, your marketplace stall could be stationary.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
That could be a quiz question. Could be a quiz question.
And when you left school, did it go on to osteopathy straight away?
Straight away. I knew I wanted to be an osteopath when I was 12.
Did you? Okay.
It sounds a bit dysfunctional, but no, my uncle was an osteopath.
Okay.
Never met him actually. He died in a car crash. I was about 3. But then my best friend at school, Chris Underhill mentioned, his dad is still in osteopath. He's like 80s now, but he's retired.
Right.
And he's up the road from me. I remember him treating one of my other uncles and thinking to myself, yes, I want to I want to do that with my hands.
Okay.
And that was it.
Okay.
The rest is applied, got in, that was it.
And where did you train?
British School, as it was, the British School of Osteopathy in Suffolk Street.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it really. I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And it's been a great time, and more to come.
Yeah.
With the social media, it's like it's the second half of my career.
Yeah.
More concentrated.
Yeah.
I remember my dad saying to me, my dad died many years ago, saying to me when I was a kid, if you want to be big, stay small.
Okay.
And so this is it.
Yeah.
We can all be big through social media and still stay small.
Yeah. It's really cool that you can see a way of being an osteopath but being online. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the same thing to bring the knowledge I've got and the work I do with clients and patients, bring that online to be able to help people.
Because everybody's on their
there
phone.
There are ways of doing it.
Everyone's on their phone.
Yeah.
You get the train station on their phone, and that is the way. The phone is you've heard this before, remote control.
Yeah.
Everything is through that. And it's funny how sorry guys, saying to parents, we're all too much on our phones and iPads. It's like the television. It depends.
Yeah.
When we heard the thing about the kaleidoscope, people used to be in a kaleidoscope and falling down holes.
Yeah.
Then there's Sonny Walkman getting run over.
Yeah. And you've always got your head in a book. Get your head out of a book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it was George Bernard Shaw at the beginning of the 20th century said, why are all these people reading? They should be out working. So it's just another medium.
Yeah.
It won't replace anything. I mean, for example, newspapers are online. You still can go and get a newspaper.
Yeah.
So people's fears, I think, are totally unfounded from that point of view. And there's been a recent hoo-ha about another major social media platform. But you know what? That's what happens. Things change. Things have to be restricted. Things have to be talked about. Things have to be discussed.
Yeah.
And I think the use of social media up to a point. You don't need to be mega skilled in social media. There will be courses in social media, but it's about doing it.
Yeah.
This is why I think the osteopathic philosophy applies nicely to social media. It's just do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that brings us on to the osteopathic philosophy then. So loads of people ask, what is an osteopath? So why don't we start there?
I suppose you could confuse people by saying it's a philosophy.
Yeah.
But what we seem to see is the hands all the time, or cracking people's backs.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the end.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a bit like, I always use the example of if you're watching football on TV, if they only show the player's feet with the ball and nothing else, So if the player kicks the ball to another set of feet, the camera will follow to another. That's what we seem to see us, but just see the end.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, step back, get the bigger picture,
Yeah.
and you'll see the whole game unfold. And what you then see, just like football, even though I'm not a big football fan, what you'll see in football is, if someone's running down the right wing, you see something happening on the left, you say pass, you see, it's all about possibilities. And the thing about the philosophy is that Western philosophy hates personal experience.
Yeah.
Everything about Western philosophy is substituting the human being's personal experience, and that's why Western philosophy is having trouble with personal experience. Yeah. This is why we believe that a lot of mental health issues are zooming up, because it's a sort of a discrepancy between what I feel and what I should be doing, and no one's looking after me, and blah blah. This is how people get stressed out. So our own philosophy is causing our own stress. Whereas inherently, if you look into the osteopathic philosophy and its connections, it's all personal. Yeah. It's just as valid. So, people misunderstand me. I'm not trying to bring the Western philosophy down. I'm trying to bring the osteopathic philosophy up.
Yeah.
And that is all about. It's not about objectivity, subjectivity. It's about participation.
Yeah.
It's all about participation and your experiences.
Yeah.
And we've got experiments, we've got experiences, and funny enough, the word experience and experiment are the same word. They mean to go forward with trepidation.
Okay.
So experiment and experience have to work together.
Okay.
But we're looking at too much at experiments in a way as the real thing.
Right.
But in fact, it's a substitution for real. We take everyday lives, everyday experience, and it's not real until we've measured it.
Yeah.
And I go, well, actually, you can measure it, fine, but you can't say it's not real.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people talk about emotions and doing the right thing, and being there for somebody all the time and doing stuff where we actually achieve things from a personal experience point of view. And it's getting that experience into a position where other people can share it. You can share experience, not just experiments. And that philosophy comes from Goethe, the German poet, whereas the major philosophy we use today comes from Descartes, the French soldier.
Yeah.
Both are valid.
Yeah.
But if we could use both in every walk of life, not just forget osteopathy, we're talking about sports or within family atmosphere, environment, it's just so much warmer, poetic. In fact, 80 still wrote loads of poetry in the early journals, and that's the only way of getting across the idea.
Okay. So 80 still, for anyone who's watching and doesn't know, is
the discovery of osteopathy in the 19th century, 1800s.
Yeah.
And he wrote loads of poetry, spoke of spiritualism, don't mention that word, but it actually means...
Feel free to mention that word, it's fine.
But that's been misunderstood.
Yeah.
Spiritualism just means meaningfulness, what's meaningful to you. And of course that's a personal experience again.
Yeah. Something I really picked up from what you've talked about, and I read a book called The Secret Teachings of Plants. Do you know that one?
I've heard it, yeah.
Yeah. And he talks a lot about Goethe as well, and is very poetic.
Yeah.
And the kind of light bulb moment for me, I mean, it's for you probably take it for granted, but I know you talk about it in your lectures, is that we've been conditioned to understand this Cartesian model of science, and that's the way we see the world, because in the Western world that's the way we've been taught.
Yeah.
Whereas Goethean and Cartesian science, if I understand it correctly, is about measuring things.
It's fragmentation, separation.
Yeah, separating things out, right? And separating the body into parts and then reassembling it.
So it gets reconstruction rather than what the late Henry Bortoft, my mentor, said to me. In fact, his last book was called Taking Appearance Seriously.
Okay.
So we go beyond the appearance into fragmentation, reconstruct, numericize if you want to. The patient or the body or the plant or the animal's gone.
Yeah.
So we've got this model sitting there and we're trying to analyse, we're actually analysing our own theory. It's like, so we're theory laden in a way. Yeah. So again, it's not wrong if you want to build a house, you need a blueprint.
Right.
But when it comes to a plant or animal or human being, it's not as strong.
Yeah.
And that's what the problem is. It can help, yes, to a point.
Yeah.
But it's limited. So
because we're biological, because we're
organic.
Because we're organic.
It's the old Promethean thing about never taking the same shape twice.
Right.
So we have the term they use was the same difference. You're the same person every day, but you're different.
Okay.
And that's the key.
Yeah. Okay.
Even when your patients come in, they're the same patient, but they're different. They've had different experiences. They've seen you last. We difference all the time.
And that difference is like kind of the big reason why randomised controlled trials are difficult to do on human beings, on any organism. Yeah. Because
the majority of scientific papers end with the term more research needs to be done.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But the key to the thing about the Cartesian system is it has no verification facility in the system. It only has falsification. So in fact, we're falsifying previously held knowledge.
Okay.
It's like passing the ball backwards.
Yeah.
So anything that works will only work to a point because we falsified previous knowledge, and then something else comes along and that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Whereas the Goethean system has both falsification and verification, and that verification is personal experience. So if I have a room full of doctors and I say to them, look, you get all that research, but then at the end of the day, you're still facing a mum with a little boy with a runny nose.
Yeah.
You make that decision.
Okay.
And that's how it works with what you've got.
Okay.
So we're denying the presence of the person, but the person's always there.
Okay.
It's as if they aren't there.
Yeah.
Which is just like doing this and saying, oh, everyone disappeared now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not against research of any kind.
Yeah.
But it's where you place it.
Yeah.
And its value.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. That really helped me to see, because as an osteopath, and I'm not registered as an osteopath anymore, and I practice as a coach, but the governing body for osteopaths, the General Osteopathic Council, it's all about evidence-based practice. Yeah. And because of that, people are only allowed to say, well, I can treat low backs because there's an evidence base for that. Yeah. And perhaps headaches, migraines, there might be a few kind of mechanical things that they're allowed to say happily that they can treat, but there are lots of things in the body that they're not allowed to talk about because there's not a sufficient evidence base for it.
Maybe that will come.
Yeah, maybe it will come.
But in the meantime, as far as I'm concerned, having evidence, the whole evidence-based medicine is based on 3 tenets.
Okay.
There's best evidence, patient values, and individual clinical experience.
Okay.
That's the bit I'm interested in.
Right.
I'm not knocking the other bits. Yeah. I'm saying if we're going to get the best, we need a whole lot to come up. Mm-hmm. So while all my colleagues are doing their research, which is fine, I seem to be this lone person looking at experience, and I want to add it to that. Yeah. And that's the only way it's going to function.
Yeah. Would you? And that experience that's using the Goethean approach?
Yeah.
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 And is that seen to be valid yet within General Osteopathic Council?
No. It's, I mean, I would say it's more valid in other areas of science.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of physicists out there that now look at it all.
Yeah.
I mean, even NASA are looking at it.
Yeah, of course.
There was experience many years ago in NASA when the astronauts went into space. It was all based on Newton's idea of colour. Yeah. Because Goethe wrote the book The Theory of Colour. So they're out in space and looking around thinking, hang on a minute, this Newtonian thing doesn't work because there's the Earth, there's the Sun. So colour doesn't come out of white light. It's a degradation of white light back into darkness. It's the middle ground. And Goethe recognised that. So, I mean, there must be something like 30,000 articles on the internet on Goethean science, if not more. Yeah. So, time will tell. Mm-hmm. But it's my job to try and get people to understand that if you're using evidence-based medicine, if you're doing anything like that, it is valid within the history of science. Yeah. And so is the Goethean system. Yeah. That's my key. Yeah. Time will tell. It will come. But my job is to validate this historically and philosophically. Yeah. Because we just assume that because we're doing something, it's the only thing to be done. Yeah. And it's not. There's 2 sides to the story. Yeah. Yeah. And it can only get better. It's a bit like, reading a newspaper by hand, which is Goethean, and it being online, which is Cartesian. If we do both together, I can pick up the Sunday paper on a Sunday, I like to sit with a cup of coffee, but during the week I'm rushing around, I look it up on my phone. So we will get there.
I like that. Yeah,
we will get there in the end.
That's great because you're not resisting the way things are. You're offering something else to add to.
But I'm trying to validate it historically because I'm saying that the Cartesian system which we use is valid in the history of science because it's there. Yeah. And so is the Goethean system. But I think it was Rockefeller University in the 1970s. Okay. So that both are there, but the Goethean, very few people know it exists.
Yeah, I didn't know. I think that's why I was having so much trouble to work out. I kind of knew something and I was struggling to understand it and justify it. And then when I understood from what you were saying about the Goethean system, it all kind of made sense.
Which is personal. It's a personal thing. Yeah. As opposed to just when you write things down or when you measure things which again are valid. Yeah. But if you, it's a bit like if you're watching a sport or a game or something, somebody gives you the result, tells you nothing about what actually happened. Right. So if it's 2-0, tells you nothing about the game. So we need to get into the process. Yeah. So the Goethean system stands back and gets into the process. So if you apply this to osteopathy, if you apply this to relationships, if you apply this to anything, it's getting in. It's not so much getting in the moment, but it's what Henry Bortoff used to call upstream thinking rather than downstream thinking. Okay. So if you're looking into a river, it's going past and see your reflection. By the time you decide to put your hand in the bit you want, it's gone. So you need to be upstream.
Yeah. Okay.
You have to come into the process. And one of my students in Holland said, it's a bit like getting on a horse that's running. The horse is trotting, you've got to get on the horse.
Yeah.
But your whole life is getting on the horse. You never get on the horse. You're always in the act of getting on.
Okay.
It's a constant process.
Mm-hmm.
It never ends.
Right.
Whereas once you're on the horse, that's the end.
Yeah.
So there's no end to it.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
And even when you're treating or you're coaching or anything, it's about seeing that process in action. So you're not in the moment. You're always just before the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So and the key thing again, it applies to anything. Self-awareness.
Yeah.
The more self-aware you become heightened.
Yeah,
to things.
absolutely. Yeah.
And that allows you to make, and that brings meaning into things and allows you to make a judgment. And this is where the word intuition comes in. To intuit.
Yeah.
To make that judgment based on that heightened awareness. So
yeah. I call it, the way I describe it in my work is connection, really, about I talk about developing a connection with my clients and kind of the difference between sympathy and empathy, because we certainly, my background before I became an osteopath was that I was a hypnotherapist, and that's a lot about changing people's behaviours, doing something to somebody and kind of retraining them in a way. And I remember when I was training as an osteopath, lots of people were saying, "Oh, it'd be great to be a hypnotherapist as well because you could really help."
I was thinking about that as well. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, what I've found since then is that if somebody's telling me their horrific life experience and all of their problems, in the past I would sympathise with them. I'd get in with them, and I'd think, okay, well, fine, all of my theories, but that actually sounds really bad, and that's a bit different, and that's actually poor them. Whereas now, I take more the approach of developing a connection with my clients.
Do something with it.
Yeah, and I can be there with them, but I don't get affected by their emotions. But I'm completely happy for them to be experiencing any kind of emotion at the time, and whatever they're going through, I can be there for them.
Well, that's why there was a psychologist, William James.
Yeah.
Died in about 1910, I think. He was a big supporter of osteopathy.
Okay.
And they're now seeing that William James's psychology, which is where Nike got their "just do it" thing from, was about action, always about action.
Okay.
So William James always said everything's sort of it seemed like everything's back to front. So, for example, if you're thinking about something, William James says it always starts with feeling.
Yep.
Once you become aware you're feeling a certain way, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's already happened. So to be aware is to be aware of something.
Yeah.
So that thing must have been there before your awareness.
Yeah.
If it's hanging in there with me.
I'm with you.
So it's always too late.
Yeah.
So William James, you don't cry. See if I can get this right. You don't cry because you're unhappy. You're unhappy, then you cry. No, crying makes you unhappy.
Okay.
Because you become aware of how you feel.
Yeah.
But it's the other way around.
Okay.
So he was a big supporter. So I've lectured on William James for a few years, and it's just fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just as applicable today.
I've heard you talking about that, how everything starts in the body. I've heard you saying, I think you said it on your weekend lecture.
Yeah.
Everything starts in the body, and something I talk about is how our experience is thought generated, thought created. And it took me a while to marry up that with like physical pain.
Yeah.
But of course, like they talk about with the Explain Pain, those guys, Lawrence, I forget his name now.
Lawrence Butler.
Yeah, his book's right there. Lawrence Butler. Yeah, that guy. They talk about how you have a physical experience in the body, and then it goes into the brain, it's processed, and then you have the experience of that pain.
That's very Cartesian.
Okay.
That's the situation.
Well, talk me through that then.
Pain is like mind.
Yeah.
It's nowhere, not nowhere. It's nowhere.
Okay.
So I was explaining the other day in my talk in Holland that the whole thing about the thinking in your brain or experiencing in your brain is called a merological fallacy. And the merological fallacy is the ascription or ascribing a part that stands in its own,
right?
Which can't happen in an organism.
Mm-hmm.
So the sense of our sense of awareness is because the sense of touch or sense of feeling is a total body experience. It's a whole. There's no point at which the whole body.
Okay.
All our other senses are all above the bottom lip, and that's because it's guarding the entrance to the body, which is the mouth, on an evolutionary basis. We talk about this with evolutionary medicine. So our sense of awareness is around our mouth, and ears, and nose. So we're there. So the brain is a massive ganglion. So we don't think in our brain. It's like we don't think in our brains. We think with our brains. The brains don't think. So hands don't write, we write with our hands.
Okay.
So these slightly back to front.
Okay.
So our sense of awareness about anything is always a total body phenomenon. Unless we have language, then that focuses things. So there's a great, who was it, Helen Keller, if you remember Helen Keller, fantastic stuff that she wrote about being in her world. And I think we have a computational computer way of looking at the body, which is helpful, but again limited. So I always say that body is somewhere, mind is nowhere.
Okay.
You can't localize it. It doesn't have, and the history of science says, if you want to measure anything in science, it must have shape, boundary, and take up space,
Right.
which mind doesn't. Pain doesn't do that either.
Yeah. Okay.
So pain can be from a letter, from bad news. It doesn't have to be physical injury. It's a sense of disturbance.
Yeah.
Where you are. You could be in the car, you could be. So if you break a leg, you're suddenly out of sync with the entire universe.
Okay.
That's got to hurt. So therefore, the Cartesian system is that you experience pain in your brain or in your mind or just receptors. But you don't have to do that. Pain is a disturbance.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of a mechanical view, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is again is not wrong up to a point.
Yeah.
But again, it's a total disturbance. You don't have to be injured to have pain.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone could just say something to you and it's painful or hurtful, as people say. So it's a way we experience things. Pain is an experience. You don't open a knee that's got an ACL damage and you don't see pain. You experience pain from that area. It's a disturbance of experience. And many philosophers have written about this.
Yeah.
You can, when you go back to the sort of Melzack and Walgate control theory, it's a mechanization idea. It's a theory. But the actual reality is that if your son hits their head, you feel it. It's a shared phenomenon. Consciousness is not in your head. Consciousness is basically we're in the world. Our experience of consciousness is where we are.
Yeah.
But to localize it to a part is this neurological fallacy.
Yeah. It's like if you start chopping off body parts and you're left, arms and legs all gone, body gone, head left, maybe you're in there somewhere. You get right down to a brain in a jar, kept alive.
Which just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Well, even go back to the philosophers again. I mean, Plato would agree with that. Aristotle would disagree.
What, that you were within the brain?
Yeah. Okay. Aristotle would say, actually, the organ of sensitivity is the heart.
Yeah.
Not
that's
the
what
brain.
Henry Boone talks about as well.
There we go.
Yeah.
So the heart is a muscle. It doesn't pump blood. This is another myth.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, the vascular system begins in the embryo before the heart forms.
Yeah.
So the vascular system forms the heart as a director. The heart's a not a muscle, it produces so much heat. That's going to be nice and warm. But the total body, the total 2/3 of circulation is actually returned to the heart. It actually pushes the heart open and it recoils.
Right.
Pushes the heart and it recoils, not pumping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, William Harvey got hold of a dog's heart, emptied it out, filled it full of water, electrocuted it, and it pumped.
Okay.
So that was it.
Right.
Now it's a pump.
Yeah.
So which means that even if any therapist wants to help a patient with a heart problem, all they've got to do is treat the vascularity at the end, the joints, the bones, hands, feet, to help return. And that would be much more exciting because if the heart pumped, then the aorta will straighten out. And it doesn't. It goes the other way.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting stuff, isn't it? So if we're not in the brain in the jar, where are we? What are we?
You could say that physically we're where we are, anywhere. Could be in the car, could be in the swimming pool, doesn't matter. But I think what's happening is now we're starting to understand that because of our held back phenomenon on an evolutionary basis, we're catalysts for consciousness. We're not containers of consciousness. That's good to know. I've never thought that before. Yeah.
Like
so we're catalysts for consciousness.
Yeah.
William James says we don't think all day. You can't. We do. So our sense of awareness, we're experiencing all the time. If the moment we know that when we have to think about things, things slow down. It distances you from something. So it's a bit like, he calls it the stream of consciousness. It's just a babbling stream of consciousness. And our form allows us to focus on things, little things all over the place. I've just driven here. I can't remember driving here. You don't remember these things.
Yeah.
You just do.
Yeah.
Something happened like an elephant fell out of the sky, I'd remember it.
Yeah.
But it will break your pattern of holding back.
Yeah.
So we hold back most of the time. We're made attentive to things. We want to do something. I mean, something like diseases like Alzheimer's, for example. I mean, James Parkinson said, everything that happens to the brain starts with the bowel and ascends to the head.
Okay.
So you get this constant nervousness. You feel it in your stomach. You don't feel it in your head. The bowel comes first on an evolutionary basis.
Right.
So if you hear a loud bang, you do that first, and then you think, what was that? So all thinking is late.
Yeah.
It's all too late. It's after awareness.
Yeah.
So, we're aware of ourselves around here.
Yeah.
If our eyes and ears were somewhere else, we'd be aware there.
Okay.
So we just, so when I'm talking to people about self-awareness, even about emotions and this factor, I'm saying, do what William James says. If you want to change an emotion, move.
Yeah.
Feel happy, make yourself feel that way, and actually it can happen.
Yeah, I've heard you talking about that before.
And it's hard done in some circumstances, whether we go through a lot of emotional stuff, but I'm telling people that actually don't sit still, because it'll just go like this, and it'll freeze you.
Yeah.
To emote is to move out. E means out in Greek.
Okay.
So express yourself.
So emote means to move.
To move out, so emotion. So it's not so much get it out of you, but do. Yeah. If you're feeling stressed out, or if you're feeling, emotional about something, do something. If it means making a cup of tea, if it means vacuum cleaning it, just keep moving.
Yeah.
And it stops you from locking in. It's not that you have to let things out of you, because you're not an object of containment. You're an expressive phenomenon. Yeah. And that gesturing becomes more consolidated into a hardening of emotion.
Okay.
When somebody's upset about something, if somebody wants to change a habit, I say get up and just run up and down on the spot for a few seconds, and the feeling will go.
Right.
Because you're moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
Okay.
And the brain is your sense of awareness is the last thing to happen. But you always catch yourself in the way you feel about something.
Yeah.
The heart beats when you see something that's exciting. You'll be sitting there thinking the opposite, but your body's reacting. The body always comes first.
What do you think about the idea that when that happens, and then you feel that feeling, that what people do is then they look for a reason, and if they didn't realise what it was, that
it can happen days before.
Yeah.
I always say to myself, if I feel a bit funny, I think, right, what's happened the past 24 hours?
Yeah.
That I wasn't aware of, thinking about that I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
And maybe I haven't phoned somebody, or maybe, but I wouldn't ascribe the immediate feeling to that thing 3 hours ago, which was the real reason why.
Right.
You tend to ascribe it to what's happening now.
Yeah.
I go, it's too late. Yeah. It's late.
I'm at the point now where I don't even bother trying to work it out anymore.
Just know if you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Just
it will pass.
Yeah, and do what you think you can do. If you haven't made that phone call to an old friend, you said you feel a bit awkward about it. Something else comes along and you react strangely to that. You blame that. And I go, no, it's not. It was the thing before.
Yeah.
So every time I feel a bit funny, I think, right, okay, what's happened?
Did I need to phone somebody?
Yeah, or did I not post a letter, or did I not done this, or not? And that's what happens. But we forget about that when you ascribe it to the moment. So yeah.
I've been talking a lot. I'd love you to listen to something I've been talking a lot about lately, and tell me how it lands for you. This idea of nature. I'm spending a lot of time in nature. And especially after reading that book, Secret Teachings of Plants. How I look out in nature and I see some kind of energy growing everything, and vitality is a word that comes up a lot because of osteopathy, and God, you could replace it with that word, any word really. And I could look at grass growing, or I could look at trees, and they're very easy to see how that expression of nature is happening. And I see myself and all of us as the same, exactly the same, an expression of nature, constantly changing, constantly happening, and it's almost like I am experiencing that.
Yeah. But
does that?
Yeah, but what happens is when we experience it, we're experiencing the end.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, whenever we look at something in nature, we're seeing the end of it. So what Goethe was saying was, if we can get ourselves in a state of consciousness to participate rather than see it from the outside, we'll begin to experience. So nature is not a physical object. I mean, you can't say...
Well, no, it's a judgment, right? It's a belief.
Yeah, it's a concept.
Yeah, a concept.
So there's a famous conversation between Schiller and Goethe. Well, Schiller says to Goethe, oh, it's just an idea you've got. So Goethe says, I'm pleased to have ideas.
Okay.
So the word idea is not, Henry Porter was making this quite clear, that the word idea doesn't mean something in your head. And the idea, by its true meaning, is the doing of something.
Okay.
It's the doing of thinking about something, or the doing of something, a process.
Okay.
So an idea is a process. So what we're seeing is the end. So even when I'm examining a patient, I know I'm experiencing the end.
Yeah.
So I have to get myself in a state of consciousness where I'm participating. It's a bit like, I use an example in my lectures of somebody walking towards me.
Yeah.
And I say to them, walk towards me. I'm And I close my eyes. When I close my eyes, you walk towards me. And I open my eyes, you stop. So we keep doing it a few times. I go, because I don't open my eyes to see the end. And the process has stopped.
Okay.
So what I then do is say, right, where I'm going to place my thinking is not opposite you. So I stand beside them and ask them to walk. And so you have to back off to be, we're in the same world, right? So what Goethe was saying was, if you can back off from your direct experience, then you'll allow more room. It's a bit like heightening your experience to not objectify something. Okay. The movement of a phenomenon will allow you to move with it. And that movement is meaning. And that leads to understanding. Okay. Empathy, call it empathy if you like, but not empathy at the end. Yeah. Empathy in the actual process. Yeah. Yeah. And this is what Henry Bortoff was saying. So it's like if we're in the same world, then we want to catch ourselves in the act of doing something, not the thing itself. So it's a bit like throwing a paper. Catch yourself in the act of throwing. You understand more than the thrown. So there's a language thing here as well. Yeah. So rather than experience something, catch yourself in the experiencing of something. Okay. So when you look at a plant or you're in the forest, be self-aware of your experiencing, and you'll participate. It'll become more meaningful than actually separating to analyse.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. And the idea of separating is it when I don't feel separate from nature itself, from being in the woods or whatever. That's when I feel like I'm getting more of an experience.
I think it was Henry David Thoreau, who was Emerson's friend, going back in the sort of 19th century, said, if a scientist looks directly at nature behaves like the head of Medusa. It turns the scientist to stone. Okay. Always look out the corner of your eye.
Right, okay.
So you want to be slightly off.
Okay.
Not at it.
Yeah.
And again, we do some martial arts. I've done a lot of martial arts, and Aikido. Yeah. And Aikido is really annoying because if you grab someone like Aikido, they just step slightly offline all the time, and it's just annoying because you can't get at them. Okay. Even before something starts. Yeah. So it's that activity of Henry Bortoff uses the example of the master and the sensei or the teacher, where the pupil never catches the master out. Because the master doesn't react to the pupil. The master allows him or herself to be moved by the pupil. Okay. So whatever you do will move me, and you'll never catch me out. Okay. So it's that classic thing, isn't it? The sort of high noon, the gunslingers, the marshal comes out, and the bad guy's there, and the bad guy always draws first, but gets shot. Okay. Because the marshal isn't reacting. Okay. He's allowing himself to be moved by the experience. Yeah. So allow yourself to be moved by the experiencing of being in the woods and forests. So you have to back off.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that's where meaning comes in, because meaning, you again, if you feel it, experience it, then you can think about it. Yeah. And it'll be meaningful. Yeah. So, and that's how I palpate my patient. I don't palpate the end of my hands. Yeah. I place my hands on as a contact point, and I allow myself to back off. Okay. To let the patient change me. Yeah. So I can understand. It becomes deeper then. Yeah. And this is what we did in Holland this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
So are you kind of putting your hands on? I mean, I know the answer to this because I've seen you working, but putting your hands on, closing your eyes, and
no, not at all. I'm closing my eyes. It's a bit like riding a bicycle. Yeah. You don't look at your feet pedaling. You just pedal. Okay. I mean, patients say to me, I can chat with patients quite happily. In fact, chatting helps because it makes me back off. I let my body do the work, and then every now and then I just notice something.
Do you think you need to have your hands on a patient to do a diagnosis?
This was, someone said this the other day in Holland. Yeah. And I said, well no, he still said this. He said, the patient's talking to me, as they're talking, and he kept starting paragraphs with the same words, in my mind's eye, in my mind's eye, in my mind's eye, I can see. Now this is not visual seeing, this is cognitive seeing. Okay. And we did this again at the weekend, because there's a difference between visual seeing and cognitive seeing. Yeah. Visual seeing, if I took, let's say I took a mobile phone to an indigenous tribe in the Borneo jungle, okay? We would sense the same thing, but not make sense of the same thing. Okay. They might use it for something else, hitting something, right? Yeah. But cognitive perception is the meaningfulness of what's being perceived. Okay. So, I could bring you an object and you wouldn't know what it is, we'd sense it. But what I concentrated on in Holland was the developing of the cognitive side of perception, rather than just the sense side. So you're walking down a country lane, and you see an image. It's coming to dusk, and the sun's coming down, summer's evening, and you see something up front and it looks like a cow. Yeah. Right. This is you've cognitively made that meaningful. We get closer, it's just a bush.
Yeah.
So it's not an illusion. We call them illusions, but actually it's cognitive perception.
Right.
So if you close your eyes, you can see things in your mind's eye because this is cognitive perception.
Okay.
But we separate the two.
Okay.
We become passive. Light enters the eye, stimulates rods and cones, goes through the optic chiasma, and it appears in the back of the skull. The occiput. This is just a mechanical way. But if you're late for a meeting, you can't find your car keys, you're running around, your wife comes and goes, look, there they are.
Yeah.
You've sensory seen them, but you haven't cognitively seen them.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So I'm developing cognitive perceptive programs to allow us and anybody in science to say, look, this is the way it goes, this is the way it works. You need your eyes to see, but your eyes don't see.
Yeah. You
see with your eyes.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. You're kind of, are you saying that there's something in front of us and we're selective about what we see?
Yeah, it's theory ladenness.
Yeah, based on theories, concepts.
That's why when I have when I give my talk, my books are all behind me.
Yeah.
Because that's my background.
Right.
What I'm saying about is the foreground.
Okay.
So we're always looking at the foreground.
Yeah.
We never bring the background in with the foreground.
Okay.
So when we show people's hands in osteopathy, that's the foreground. It's meaningless to a point because it doesn't tell you anything about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Again, it's the end process.
Okay.
So the way we see things is based on our theory. The word theory comes from theaetetus, which is a play by Plato. And the word theory means to behold, and that's where we get the word theatre from. Yeah. To behold. So that background is important. Okay. You see, if you're trained in something, you will see things that way. Yeah. If you put two people side by side and one's trained in something, one isn't, then the one who's trained will just do it because it'll be trained. Yeah. So it's a bit like if you put glasses on with red lenses, you'll see everything in shades of red. Yeah. If I gave you a blue piece of paper, you'd say, "Oh, it's just dark red." And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's where we need to be studying that background all the time. And that's why I talk about mindset.
Okay.
And I said the weekend, in Holland the past couple of days, I said before we do anything, we've got to get our mindset right. So I've been one day on philosophy.
Yeah. So perspective, a fresh perspective, really.
You get 2 hours. I always say in my lectures, even to my undergraduates in Poland, that after this weekend, I'm going to double your knowledge. Yeah. When I say double, that's not numerical double. Yeah. It's the other perspective. Yeah. I use the example of a plastic carrier bag. That's your worldview. Everything in that bag, you'll see that way. I then take everything out in my lectures, pull the plastic bag inside out, which can be very uncomfortable, and put everything back in again. Yeah. It still holds, but it's coming from the other perspective. Yeah. It's like I suppose you could call it Henry Bolton called it an alternative reality. Yeah. Well, it's not an alternative to reality. It's an alternative reality. Yeah. It's like when people talk about alternative medicine. Osteopathy is not an alternative to medicine. Yeah. It's meant to be an alternative medicine. Yeah. It's just the other way around. Yeah. And it covers both sides. Yeah. But unfortunately, we're just on one side all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's circled back quite nicely, actually, hasn't it? Because it's we're seeing things a certain way because of the way we've been educated generally. And
language is a big issue as well.
Yeah, of course, it's restricting.
Pronoun, noun, adjective.
Yep.
And that's the way we see our world through language. Yeah. We're talking now, but I'm not thinking about talking, I'm talking. Yeah. It's back to front.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day about how, again, out in nature, I can be there and I can be, feeling connected or however you want to describe it, and then suddenly I say, isn't that a beautiful tree? And as soon as I've done that, I've named it, I've judged
it. Well, it's like patients come to me and go, "I've got sciatica," and I go, "Oh no, you said it now."
So you said
I can't get my head.
You said that to me years ago, and it didn't really mean what it means now when you say it.
Unless you label something, come to a label if you want to. Yeah. I mean, the word diagnosis means to go through and beyond. Diarrhea means to go through, and the Gnostics, the K was a G, is knowing, and it's knowing transcendentally, i.e., to go through something, not to get at it. Because it goes back to throw again. Once you're at something, it's dead. In fact, Goethe said, kill something with a word. Well, that's it. Useful, yes, but we must realise that actually that is only an end product. Yeah. But we need end products. Yeah. I mean, if you're finding a battle, in a campaign of war, you need to know specific things. This is what I think it's Ian McGilchrist, the psychiatrist, brilliant.
Okay.
You know, I don't want all the information about the area. I want to know specifically, which is not reality, but it works better under the circumstances. You know, if I want to know a map, I don't want to know if I'm trying to get from my place, North London, to here. I don't want to know what cows are in the area. Give me an A road.
Okay.
That is being reductionist, but in those conditions, I need that to get from A to B. But if I'm going to go for a walk in the woods, I don't want to be too reductionist because you lose the essence of what's going on. Yeah. So there's a time for everything.
Yeah.
And I think we need to realise that.
That's lovely. And it really fits together really nicely. I'm hanging in there with you. I had a very kind of basic education. I didn't study Latin. I didn't do any philosophy. So I feel like I'm kind of catching up. And I'm not the only one. I think lots of people come from...
Yeah, but then what I'm saying is that the catching up process with modern philosophy, or philosophy as it is, it's the wrong philosophy. So we should be doing things in reverse.
Do you mean with philosophy the way it's taught
in academia?
Currently? Yeah. Okay.
It's not experience based.
Right.
So it's not so much catching up, it's a new area.
Well, the only philosophy I'm exposed to really is what you're teaching and stuff I'm reading recently. So.
And I'm the messenger. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I always tell it to my group, I don't know. Go ahead and do your own reading, go ahead and get involved, because you might cherry pick what pertains to your life. Yeah. And that's all you can do.
Well, yeah, and that is what I tend to do, yeah. And it's like I'll have an experience and I'll formulate an idea, and I think a lot, and I probably think too much sometimes. I try and understand things which could be easier understood without even thinking about it. But then I'll listen to what say you're saying, and I'll try and tie it together and see how it fits.
And then that's where the moral and ethics comes in as well, because moral philosophy and ethical philosophy, as long as no damage is being done, no one's respectful, no one's being hurt, and the other person or whatever situation taken into consideration, and participation. Yeah. Only good can come out of that. Yeah. Only good, and even if it is bad, it might be good later on. It might be bad short term, but depending on where it is for the individual. But that's what experience equals pain. Unfortunately, it can be painful. But it's going through those experiences. Yeah. We used to have grandmothers to talk to us. Now it's psychotherapists. So it's like the natural phenomenon of experience. Yeah. And it doesn't take away experiments, as I've always said. It's that I'm bringing up that bit to marry up with everything else. Yeah. But it works well.
Good for you. It's really good. One more question. I'll check we're still filming.
Yeah, still there.
We are. Is a word that's thrown around a lot is holistic. Yeah. Okay. And I think we've gone pretty deep, but let's talk about that. I mean, we've kind of covered it in a way, but let's talk about what does the word mean?
It's been misused a lot. Yeah. I mean, holism is not putting things together. There's a thing called multiplicity and unity and multiplicity. Okay. Now, McConnell, who's one of Still's closest students, said that osteopathy is a multiplicity and unity, the many as the one. Okay. So we see lots of things, but actually they're one, and that's not a numerical one. Again, whereas unity and multiplicity means the one is the many. It's the opposite, which is Cartesian. So basically what happens is wholeness is not a physical object, it's what's known as active absence. Okay. It's a contextuality. So if I asked you to walk between the gap between two parked cars, language allows you to identify the context, and you can walk between the gap between two parked cars. Yeah. But if I say, can you please bring the gap to me, even though my language is still constructed grammatically correct, you can't do it. Yeah. It's an active absence. So wholeness is an active absence. Okay. It's not a thing. The other example of wholeness is if I took a photograph of somebody and transposed that photograph onto a glass plate, this is what I talk about in my lectures, and then drop the glass plate on the floor. If I then go and look at the fragments of the glass plate, there'll be fragments, pieces of the original picture. Mm-hmm. If I take a hologram, which is a light-based, laser-based photograph, and the hologram is imposed on the glass plate, you can see the light image, you can turn it slightly, you can see the shape was slightly turned slightly. I mean, you get one, the iPhone has a slight hologram to it, it shifts slightly. Yeah. Now, if I take that holographic plate of the image of somebody, drop it on the floor and it smashes, when I pick up a piece of glass, I see the whole image in that piece of glass. I pick up another piece of glass, I see the whole person again. Okay. Now, as that piece of glass gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the image fades away. Okay. There's nature dying. So wholeness is not between the parts, wholeness is through the parts. So every part is whole. Okay. And that's wholeness. Wholeness is not a thing, it's not a physical object. Mm-hmm. In fact, the best way of looking at it is Giuseppe Arcimboldo from the 16th century, the painter, who had all that fruit made look like a face.
I don't know that one.
They'll be on YouTube if anyone wants to look at it. Giuseppe Arcimboldo, 16th century.
Okay.
You'll see the fruit put together, or the books put together, everything put together, and there's a face.
Okay.
But the face isn't there. It's an active absence.
Okay.
That's wholeness.
Okay.
You can't hold it.
Yeah. That makes sense, because a lot, people say, well, I'm a holistic therapist. I think about both of your legs.
Yeah, that's not wholeness.
Yeah.
That's the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
A car is the sum of the parts. An organism is not the sum of the parts.
And in the same way, the way we were taught is that this holistic approach is to consider, psychosocial factors and work,
that's the sum
medicine
of the parts,
and all that. Again,
so we reconstruct.
Yeah.
We deconstruct to reconstruct. We deconstruct it through parts of language, and then we reconstruct.
Yeah.
So this is why Henry Borto's last book was called Taking Appearance Seriously. It's the appearance as a whole. It's there, but we break it down and reconstruct on a theory, which is fine to have some degree of understanding. But then you've destroyed it.
Yeah.
The patient's gone. The person's gone. You've drawn pictures and dots, and that's what's left.
Yeah.
So the patient's actually gone away. The animal's gone away. The plant's gone away.
Yeah.
And I see it. We were doing evolution work the other day, and we were looking at an image of Cro-Magnon skull, which had been digitized, so dots all over it. Then it'd been lots of straight lines. By this time, the skull had gone. It was just these straight lines and dots.
Yeah.
So again, we need to do that to reconstruct, to have some meaning.
Yeah.
But then that's the experiment-based meaning.
Yeah.
We can add that to the experience-based meaning. Look at the skull.
Yeah.
Imagine the skull in your mind's eye. Look at it for movement, because the bones are moving and morphing. That's why it's called osteopathy, because the deepest form of movement is bone movement on an evolutionary basis, not dura.
Okay.
Because bones, by their form, Aristotle called it the essence of something.
Yeah.
It's not behind it, it's in the form.
Okay.
And the form is always moving because it's organic. And so A.T. still used to feel the bones in his pocket to get the idea, back to that thing, idea again, of how we should be moving.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Does that answer your question?
It does answer it, yeah. No, I have got more questions, but I don't know if we can keep going. We could.
We're going to do it again. We'll get another time.
Yeah, we could, yeah. Because I think that's brilliant. It's really helpful.
Well, the thing is to get people to write to you on your site for questions.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Get those questions. If anyone doesn't mind writing in, if you might have some questions I can come back to later and answer.
We can get Walter back and we can ask your questions, because
we can do Facebook Live at some point.
Because that would be great, yeah, absolutely.
That'd be good.
Because the way, I'm new to interviewing, but I feel myself, I've got questions for my own benefit that I want answered by you.
People can write to you. People can write to you.
Yeah.
Ask Walter.
Ask Walter.
I like it. So we do that.
I know that you talk a bit about spirituality. When you were talking about holism, you were talking about the 3D and the fragment of the glass.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the idea of fractals.
Yeah.
And DNA, and this idea that you've got the essence of everything in the tiniest of things,
which also is a contradiction, because the universe is always there.
Is always there in everything.
And everything is in everything. So basically, this goes back to David Bohm, the physicist, quantum physicist. Implicate order, it's called, where he worked with Henry Bortoft, and I said to Henry Bortoft one day, "How can we make a glass?" He said, "Because the universe allows it." Trial and error came about historically to make glass.
Right.
So until we get to a point where it's stable, but we don't realise actually the universe is allowing us. I mean, for example, Isaac Newton knew absolutely nothing about gravity. He wrote to his friend Bentham and said, "I know nothing about gravity." But one thing that Isaac Newton did know was that gravity was not a component of anything of mass. Didn't know where it is. So, but now we're seeing scientists looking at mass, for example, planets and all this, saying, "Oh, there's gravity." Go, no, it's not a component of mass. So, for me, looking at physicists, the book of physicists, is tantamount to healthcare, because our concepts of how things are is based on that basic understanding of physics.
Yeah.
And the word physics means the first encounter with nature, right back to Aristotle.
Right.
Physics, physician, physicalness. It's that first encounter.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the work of Aristotle is vital. Aristotle was a philosopher who should always be seen, as Henry Bortoft said, in the background of dynamics, not in a serious depth. And I think A.T. Still was the same, because A.T. Still seemed to give the impression, as I found the discovery of osteopathy, of contradicting. 1 minute the rule of the artery is supreme, then you live and die by the fascia. So what people have done is they pulled out pages and run with them.
Yeah.
In fact, A.T. Still's idea of what seemed to be a contradiction came from Hegel, the philosopher.
Okay.
Hegel said nature can be moved by contradiction. Heat, cold, dark, light. These are contradictions, and in between that is a third element, which is rhythm. It's movement.
Right.
The contradiction allows movement.
Yeah.
But we see in the Cartesian world, we see contradiction as something bad.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like semantics. You only have semantics in the Cartesian world. You can't have semantics in the Goethean world because there's nothing to be semantic about.
Right. Right.
So again, our language structure is important and how we see things. So movement in nature is a contradiction.
Yeah.
And that's how it moves. If you look for stability, you're in trouble. There's no stability. Again, it's that Promethean thing about constantly taking the same shape twice. Chaos. We see that as chaos. In fact, it's the reality. And this idea of trying to make reality stable and repetitive is a religious phenomenon.
Okay.
Not a scientific phenomenon.
Okay.
Although I think both the same sometimes. So there you go.
Fantastic. My mind's a bit blown
Get
now.
me right in.
Yeah.
Get me back on. Love it.
We'll do it, yeah. Any questions, let me know, and we'll get Walter back in.
On anything, cooking, anything,
You can cook as well.
Yeah, I'm cooking.
Because you've read all of these philosophy books.
Well, yeah, last year I punished myself by reading Aristotle's De Anima, the Metaphysics, the Physics, and the Nicomachean Ethics. It was hard work.
Wow.
But
I struggled to get through a book in a month.
Yeah,
it
was hard work, but it paid off because it allows me to back up to get these overall ideas, and which are stimulated by people's questions.
It's fantastic. And you've also read all of A.T. Still's journals, is that right?
They've got thousands, well not all of them, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot I've read through there.
Right.
And with that background, whatever he says makes sense.
Yeah.
But without that background and mindset, it's really hard to understand things. You've got to get that mindset. The mindset is not anti today, it's pro coming into the 19th century. Especially with Spinoza and all these people that had this different mindset, intuitiveness and everything else. So
Wonderful.
Better stop now.
That's great stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining
Pleasure.
me. Really enjoyed that. And we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Good.
Thanks very much, Walter.
That's good.
Bye-bye.
Enjoyed that.